3, 2, 1,
jingle! Happy time has just begun. Brother, sister, smart, dumb, fun. Yeah!
Oh, look at that. Notice how when the beat dropped, I brought Ann in. That's right. I did that on purpose.
Nice job, Jenny.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I do what I can. Right on. You guys are watching The Brother Sisters in a super special Wednesday show. That's right, you guys. This is our Wing Wednesday edition, mainly because I adore chicken wings, and it's Wing Wednesday over at Louie's in Kalamazoo. And if you're in... was it Chisago City, Minnesota, at the Northern Tavern, it's also Wing Wednesday. So get in line because that is a busy night there. So anyway, it's a Wing Wednesday edition of The Brother Sisters. And we have a super special guest with us, which is Toit. Bailey Sisoy-Moore is with us. Well, don't worry. I know you guys. We'll get to her. I know it's just super exciting. But yeah, so Anna and I are fresh off of our trip to Chicago. Oops, I forgot to turn our music off. Turn it off that time. I forget that it's on a loop, and then I'm like, if I get all excited, then it plays again. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because our music from Mad Max Caselli, Marvelous Max Caselli, Magician Max Caselli is pretty great. So yeah. So Anne, how are you feeling? I'm having a little bit of a Chicago hangover today. That's why I'm having a beer during the show, because a little hair of the dog that bit you.
Yeah, I was gonna say my stomach has hurt since midnight. It's like, what do you want for dinner? And I was like, broth.
Broth and some vegetables.
Exactly. Broth. That would be nice. Something.
That would be good. So yeah, we will talk more about Chicago. I don't know. Other than it was a really good trip. Okay, I'm going to say one thing about Chicago, Anne. And I know I'm going to talk about it in a minute. I was going to talk about it right now, but it's actually part of my Smart Dumb Fun. So
okay.
I'm going to go ahead and just pop this in here. This is our. Oops, I'm just going to go there. You can see that. I guess I'll take our background out, even though I love our background. All right. So we went to Chicago. It was amazing. We'll talk a little more about that in just a minute. But in the meantime, you guys, for those of you that are just joining us, welcome. We love you. And would you like to take people through our synopsis?
I will. If you're a new listener or just need a refresher, here's our synopsis. We're Anne and Janice Brothers, the Brother Sisters. You heard right. We're in our 50s, which means we're Gen X. And that means that when we were in our 20s, which was in the 1990s, all the cool, hip, and sexy people had pagers.
Yeah.
We didn't, because even in our 20s, we were not cool, hip, or sexy. All you needed was a pager and a payphone. And yeah, I know, but at the time we thought it was groundbreaking. Before regular people got pagers, only doctors had them.
Drug dealers.
We thought it was real future shit. So, yeah, now we're like, oh man, now it's a punchline. But then it was super cool. All right, so we talk about smart stuff, dumb stuff, fun stuff, or any combination of the three. We are not cool, hip, or sexy. We know this because we love a tote bag. In fact, in Chicago, we went to the Unabridged bookstore, and if you bought a tote bag with your books, you got 10% off, and every time you bring the tote bag back, you get 10% off your purchase. So, new tote bag.
Yeah. Anne was contemplating a tote bag when she was checking out, and she's like, no, I'm not going to get the tote bag. And then the guy told her the deal, the 10% off plus 10% when you come back, and she melted. It was like all of her defenses came down. She's like, must have tote bag.
I was like, I'm practically losing money not buying it. All right.
What a brother's way to do math, Anne.
Exactly. So we're not celebrity, influencer, or true crime podcasters. There's too much awesome stuff out there for us to focus on one thing.
Yes. So I'm kind of like a squirrel in that respect. I'm like, squirrel. Okay.
Exactly. We've been told we're good to listen to while you're waiting for your next credit from Audible to kick in. So you're like, oh man, I still have 4 days until I can buy my next book. What am I going to listen to? Brother, sister, smart, dumb, fun. There you go. Filling in You're welcome. Okay, this podcast is not G, PG, or even PG-13, so watch out for the fuck, because it could happen.
There it is. You heard it for your first.
Yeah, exactly.
During the synopsis.
Join us on our website, Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. Like us, follow us, hit the bell, give us your feedback with our Q&A and polls. And you can ask Alexa to play us, and she will.
She'll play the
will.
latest episode because she's smart like that. So
She is. She
yes.
is. So, thanks,
Right on.
Alexa. So, Jenny, let's talk about some smart, dumb, fun stuff that happened to us this week. Would you like to start?
We went to Chicago. It was amazing. The older I get, the I find that I pare back my Chicago stuff. Like it used to be, I wanted to run around and do 100 different things. We did a little bit of that, but we also just kind of chilled a little bit too. My favorite smart thing was the Unabridged bookstore, and that place was serious. That is a serious bookstore for serious book people. There were no stickers. There was no fun stuff. There was no jewelry. There were no mood rings. Books, bitch. That's what they had there. So, just so you know, that place. And they had them all. And the people there were very serious about their books. I liked it there. The dumb things, a lot of tank tops and bad shoes in 40-degree weather that I noticed, especially amongst the women. Also, trench coats are back in. Diane Keaton fashion from the 80s is in. And you'd better have a trench coat with a belt, not actually tied up, just hanging, because that's a thing. Fun stuff. Well, experiencing the cool new stuff. For me, it was going to Chinatown. I've never been there before. Eating food that I don't know how to pronounce and didn't know what was in it was totally cool, especially the crispy love balls. I don't know what those were, but they were amazing.
They were amazing.
And as far as things that I really enjoyed, I liked Big Shoulders Coffee. I thought Obelix, the French restaurant we went to, was fantastic. And Frontera Grill never, ever, ever disappoints.
Never. I guess I'd also add Italy to that because I just love going there and like basking in all the ridiculously expensive food, having a drink and eating some charcuterie.
Yes, and they have a really good Lambrusco there. I forgot to buy a bottle of that.
You were supposed to get a bottle of that.
Yep.
All right.
Oh well, next time.
Next time. So,
and what about you?
My thing was a smart and or a fun stuff this week. This is so hilarious. I am a big collector of houseplants, and in the summer, all my houseplants go outside, so they get a chance to bask in the natural glory. And then I put all of the ones that my cats like to chew. I put them in my upstairs bathroom, so I can just shut the door, and my cats can't get to it. Anyway, I
You're
found
talking about during the winter.
Yeah, during the winter. So during the winter, they go in my bathroom upstairs. During the summer, they're outside. So I found a toad in one of my houseplants in my bathroom this week. And there's a picture of him. If you're watching this, or if you want to check it out later, there's a picture of the toad I found in my bathroom in my houseplant.
Cute little tiny toad. And my question immediately was like, where did this toad come from?
I don't know. I assume he was hanging out in the fall when I brought him in. And then he's just been living in my bathroom, eating bugs and living in the plants until one day out the corner of my eye, I'm like, oh, that looked like a toad. No. And then I go check it out. It was a toad. So fortunately the weather I was like, what am I going to do with this toad? So I took him back outside. The weather was good enough, for him to like go off and be his toad self. I thought he would be better off doing what he does instead of me trying to take care of him because I don't know how to take care of a toad. So it was just wild. So if you put your houseplants out in the summer and then bring them back in when it starts getting cold, you might end up with a toad in your bathroom.
Well, it's a testament to how well they can hide themselves, and how just, they're like, he was probably like, oh, what's this human doing? I'm like, I'll just hide out here until they leave. And then he found himself in a whole new environment. So
yeah, and I have some big houseplants. So, it was like even in my bathroom, I have some very substantial houseplants that he could get lost in for months.
I just like how tiny he is. He's like, look at that. That's a business card. And he's smaller than your business card.
Yeah,
tiny.
He's a tiny little guy. I was like, look at him. You're so cute.
So cute. Nice. Very good. Well, hey, shall we get to the good stuff?
Yes.
Okay. All right. The moment you've been waiting for. This is historian, businesswoman, inspiration, Bailey Sisoy-Moore. We're going to bring her into the studio. Here we go. Big round of applause. Bailey, this is awesome. I can't even begin to tell you how excited that we are that you are on the show. So yeah, let's go.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you so much, Bailey. In case we haven't made it clear, Bailey is in charge of Detroit History Club and Detroit History Tours. And Jenny and I are big fans of both of those things. Huge fans. We're huge fans. So we're both members of Detroit History Club.
Yes.
Thank you. Never in a million years would I put inspiration on the list. So that's very humbling. Thank you.
Oh, no, you totally are.
Yep. That's a true statement. So, yes.
Wait till you see me eat Oreos. The inspiration knows no bounds.
Okay. I hear you. That's the way I feel about Oreos, though. So I 100% get that. So, Bailey, we're going to ask you a bunch of questions.
Okay.
And we're going to, so we'll have the questions down at the bottom of the screen in case you lose track of what we asked you. And again, Bailey, you are the executive director of the Detroit History Club and the Detroit History Tours. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up our first question. I just have to get to the right screen. There it is. Okay, question one. Anne, why don't you take question one?
Bailey, could you tell us something smart, something fun, and something dumb?
Absolutely. So something smart is that we're in the golden age of modern book publishing. So the pandemic sucked, right? Every part of the pandemic suck. But there are these little tiny silver linings to the pandemic. And one of them is sort of because of the way publishing works, we're just now seeing the fruit of. A lot of people went into lockdown. And you know that adage of, oh, if I just had the time, I'd write my great American novel. Or, oh, if I just had the time, I'd take all my knowledge on this topic and do a informative academic text. Thousands of people did. And 2024 is shaping up to be one of the biggest publishing years for academic texts in American history. And it's looking like that's because in 2020, there were people who had time, resources, and kind of brain space to work on their books. So there's going to be so much good stuff to read this year. And I think that's really cool and smart.
Agreed. That's awesome.
I agree. No, go ahead.
Oh, my something dumb is, I think Jenny and I are going to feel the same on this. Oreos are pissing me off. The shrinkflation of the Oreo filling, the Oreo cream filling, is now so minuscule that the double stuffed feels like an original. And you know they're going to come out with the triple stuffed, and it's going to be 4 times the price. And damn it, Oreo, stop being dumb.
I've been saying this for years that we are fighting as a society over the wrong things. We should be fighting over the fact that Oreos are cheaping us out. Lay's potato chips are cheaping us out. I'm not getting the number of Doritos that I should get anymore. Yeah, that's the stuff that we should be really tearing things up about. I agree. Bailey, you are 100% correct.
This is one of those hills to die on for me. Like, we are not losing our Oreo filling.
Well, Jenny and I were just, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Go ahead.
Oh, something fun is that I got to go out on a Saturday night, which is rare for me because of my job. And I got to go to the professional women's hockey league game that was hosted at Little Caesars. And while there, I was part of a little over 13,000 people who broke the attendance record for women's professional hockey. It is now the best attended women's professional hockey game in world history. And we did it here in Hockey Town when the 2 teams that were playing weren't even Detroit teams. It was Ottawa versus Boston. That's how much the people of Detroit showed out to support women's sports. They were only going to have the lower bowl open. They ended up selling out, extending. It was about as fun as anything I've done in recent memory. It was a ton of Little League and Pee Wee girls hockey teams. It was tons of boy hockey teams coming out to support. It was oddly emotional in a way I wasn't expecting it to be, and just incredible. And when they flashed on the Jumbotron that we had set the record for attendance, it was pretty darn cool. There was also some Taylor Swift sing-along overlap that as a huge fan of, I'm not a Swiftie. I don't know all the music, but I love what Taylor Swift is doing for young women and entrepreneurs and just smart business. It was wild to look over and think, this is women's professional hockey, something that I never thought I'd see in my life, with this sing-along of a billionaire music mogul who's done it her own way and done it well. and all of these young girls, young women who will never know a world that's anything other than that. And what could be more fun than that? It was
Nothing.
great.
Yeah,
And Boston
that gave
won,
me.
and they have 3 players from Michigan on their team. So
That's
I call that a
awesome.
Michigan win. In my world, that's a Michigan win.
Well, and it's more so that there are towns that claim that Detroit is not hockey town, and this is more proof that Detroit is hockey town. It is,
When
and
you have
that's
13,000 people buy a ticket for a game where neither of their teams are playing,
Mm-hmm.
it's
hockey
definitive
town.
proof. Yeah,
Fix the
And
Oreos, we're hockey town.
We're hockey
Yep.
town. Exactly.
that's fantastic.
Well, that's a great, smart, fun, and dumb thing. As I don't know if you heard earlier, but one of the things Jenny and I often do when we go to a new town is we go to their local bookstore, and then we buy a bunch of books, and now we have other books to look forward to.
Indeed.
And
Now,
I
did we
share
hear
your tote bag affinity.
nice?
Oh, yeah.
Indeed.
can
Now,
never
did
have
we hear
too
your
many.
dumb thing?
Yeah,
Did we
she
hear your
did.
dumb
She
thing,
talked
Bailey?
about Oreos. Oreos were the dumb thing.
That was the dumb thing. Okay.
Mhm.
See, because I consider that to be the smart thing, but that's how serious I am about store-bought cookies. So there you go.
We all have that thing that just is instant nostalgia comfort.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Leave my
And I-
Oreos alone.
I feel that way about Oreos. I also feel that way about Chips Ahoy. That's my other go-to store-bought cookie. That is just the greatest. So, and I just want to make a quick comment on what you said about young women, never having to know what it's like not to have that sort of athletic. As an athlete, I was an athlete in the '80s, where it wasn't that way. Where I was kind of this. It was still, we got to do it, which was great, but we certainly weren't taken seriously. As athletes, and that's for sure. So it's nice to be able to see that these young women can go and be taken seriously as athletes. I think it's massive. So I love
What
it.
sport did you play? Can I ask?
I played softball and basketball, and then I also played soccer. I played club soccer in college. So
That's awesome.
yeah. So it's nice that young women are going to be able to know and be valued and make money in professional sports. So that this is their time, and I love it.
Yeah, it was a really cool moment. My husband went with me, and he's much more sports than I am. To me, I'm like, I hope both teams have fun. Like, I'm just not a huge sport person. And my husband, about midway through, looked at me and he said, I knew they'd be good. He's like, I knew this would be among the best women's hockey players. He goes, but damn, they're great. Like, they're just the level of skill and athleticism. It was just so fun to watch. If anyone's in any of the towns where you can get to a PWHL game, go. You won't regret it.
That's awesome. I will do that. I'm looking forward to finding a game now. Yay.
Hey,
So,
me too.
all right. That was fantastic. All right. Question 2. We ask this of all of our guests because it's an important question. Bailey, what is your spirit animal?
It's a hard one. I want it to be something like majestic or super cute, and it's not. It is not. I know myself too well. It's a beaver. It is an industrious, water-loving, constantly eating, chubby little thing. That is my spirit animal. Let me make a nice den. I want to be by the water. What do you got for snacks? Anyone coming over to hang out? When I learned that beavers share their den with other species, that muskrats will climb into beaver dens, that box turtles live above beaver dens, and that the beavers are kind of the hostess of the river, it just really amplified my belief that deep down somewhere I am between a muskrat and a beaver.
Love it.
That's beautiful. That's just beautiful. So,
Anne likes to say, beaver's got a beef. Yo.
Beaver's got a beef.
Sometimes,
Jenny
damn it,
and I,
you just got to do it.
Exactly. Jenny and I are big fans of going hiking and looking for evidence of beavers. We'll like, oh my gosh, look at that. A beaver chewed that, and then we'll like tromp off and try to find the den or whatever. So we're big fans of the industrious beaver. We think that anything that will, I was like, look at them messing stuff up for humans. Love them so much.
It is. I live in Kalamazoo, and Asylum Preserve Park is in Kalamazoo, and there's a a number of beavers that live in the little Asylum Lake area, and they have just been making the engineers of that park crazy because they keep trying to outwit the beavers, and the beavers are like, no, nice try. Okay, what else you got?
Yeah, with zero beaver stress. They are
Yes, none.
unbelievable.
Nope.
I read a book recently called The Industrious Beaver, and it's somebody's PhD thesis that they then turned into a book. So it's a little heavy and into the minutia, and there were parts where I was like skim, but there was fascinating information in there about how beavers are being returned to national parks and what they do to actually build floodplains in, and how, yes, it floods the floodplain area, but then they don't see flooding in other areas. And yeah, just like crazy logical beaver stuff. And yeah, I'm obsessed. And of course, the official animal of the city of Detroit. So that never hurts.
Right.
Totally.
No,
and it's it's amazing what happens when you just let nature do what it's supposed to do.
Let it be.
Let it be.
Oh, I like that. T-shirt. Fantastic. All right, answer number 3.
Bailey, where did your love of Detroit come from?
Oh, my crazy family. We're a local family. We, as my grandma would say it, married, buried, and paid taxes in the city of Detroit. We grew up here. We love the city. I was really lucky. I was raised in a family with a mom and aunties and a grandma who did things. Like, I don't remember being home a ton as a kid. We were always at something or going to something. And in particular, do you remember the circular that used to come in the Free Press on Sundays? It was like the insert, and it had all of the upcoming free and low cost events for the next week. It was great. It was this wonderful circular. And I think we basically lived by that damn thing. We went to every festival, every, event, DNR walks on Belle Isle, and we went to the Wiggle Club at the DIA Theater, which I think is where my love of theater comes from. We would go to all of it. And always raised in a family where if you had a question or you wanted to explore something, my entire family is curious. So we would explore things. We would go to cemeteries on bike rides and riding through the cemetery if somebody saw a grave. And I remember once my sister saw a grave where the dates, she was younger and doing the math, and it was a child who had died. And she asked my mom about it. And instead of my mom, coming up with some platitude, my mom took us to the library and we went through the old microfilm back when it was, the crank machine microfilm. And we found what happened to this kid. And so even from a young age, I think my family instilled in me, we're Detroiters. So damn it, we're going to be Detroiters. And we're going to do stuff, and we're going to be involved, and we're going to volunteer, and we're going to be in the places we live. So I would love to take credit for it, but really it comes from a great family.
That's fantastic.
That's beautiful.
I know. I love it.
Jenny and I also, we weren't raised in Detroit, but we had an aunt who lived in Detroit and taught in Detroit for years. And we learned to love Detroit through her, and for very similar reasons, just doing and being in Detroit. So,
and that's so much. I mean, I have students now, and I always say that to them, that wherever you are, be there. Don't be in a city dreaming about the vacation to the other place. Like, get out and be a tourist in your community, be a museum goer in your community. The idea that America has 36,000 house museums, but most people don't go to the one that's in their community. They travel and go to the one they visit. And it's
good point.
It's such an interesting thing. I think life gets really rich when you treat home the way you treat travel destinations. Smart.
That's a super smart statement.
Yeah, that's a very good philosophy. It's a very good philosophy.
Yeah, I love that. I'm stealing that too.
I know.
All yours. I'm sure it came from somewhere.
All right. So Bailey, what is your origin story? So you told us about where you got your love of history from Detroit. How did you get? What's your story? How'd you get where you are right now?
Oh man. So weird and winding road. I think like a lot of people went to the College of Creative Studies here in Detroit. And thought I was going to be an automotive designer. That's really where I saw myself heading. I did the General Motors internship my senior year of college, and then was hired on at General Motors. And that's sort of one of those things where you think, all right, there's the next 30 years, life's planned. I was an automotive sculptor, first for Cadillac, later for Chevrolet, later for GMC. Had some phenomenal years there. I was there 12 years, led some programs, worked with the smartest, most talented people you can imagine. And it just wasn't clicking. I was working 90, 100-hour weeks. I was not feeling the love for it that I thought I would when I was pushing through school and pushing through all of it. And it was sort of leaving me in this place of, I can do this work. There are parts of this work I absolutely love, but I probably am never going to be as good as the best people at this because I just don't have it in my soul the way they do. And when you get to work at those levels, those really high levels at any automotive or, manufacturing, there are rock stars among you. And I had the privilege of working with people who just still to this day, their talent astounds me. And as it started kind of realizing I wasn't going to be the rock star, I was going to be a day in, day out worker. And that 90-hour weeks doing that weren't going to give me a life that I wanted. And so a lot of weird things happened. This is around 2008 when bankruptcy and all the other factors that you don't have any control over are happening. But at the same time, I was sort of the designated General Motors design girl for tours. Because just like every big factory, GM brings people in from all over the world to live in Detroit for 2 years, 3 years while they're working on projects. And my bosses would come to me and be like, Bailey, can you go show this person around? They're here to do this 2 or 3 year work placement, but they're not leaving Warren, where General Motors is located, or they're not ever going downtown. Will you take them and show them around? And I was doing that and absolutely loving it. It was the thing I looked forward to every week. So from that, it grew into like, well, let's try a public tour. Let's see what happens. And the power of the internet, put it on Facebook. I'm going to do a women's history tour of Detroit. And 50 people said they'd come. And it was like, oh, crap. All right, we need a bus. We got to figure this out. And it started growing. And as it got bigger and bigger, it came to the head of my boss at General Motors needed to basically get some people laid off or bought out because they were going through the bankruptcy and, powers that be. And my boss came to me. I had great bosses at General Motors, always felt supported and like I was working for people who were mission driven and cared. And my boss came to me and said, look, I've got to, cull a few people off our list. Any chance you're willing to take the hit? Because, we're kind of getting the feeling that maybe you're going in a different direction. And I said, you know what? Yeah, I'll take the severance package, lay me off, and I'll go full bore at what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So I went full time doing tours, and the tours grew into the event arm, which is the Detroit History Club, which I can't thank the brothers, sisters enough for coming to and supporting. And now General Motors calls me about once a year and says, do you want to come back? And I get to go, not for all the Oreos of the world. Have fun, you guys. So it's really sort of blossomed from something I never expected to be my job into my very full-time job. And the hours are back to excruciatingly long weeks. But the difference is I just, to my core, couldn't imagine doing anything else. And while I still sculpt and while I still, look at cars and go, oh, I wouldn't have done that like that. Or, I have my opinions. It's that difference. My husband says it's the difference from being a B student to being an A student. And for me, I always want to go where I can do the very best. So this is a wonderful life that somehow blossomed out of it all.
So that's super awesome. And you actually answered question 5 at the same time you answered question 4. So there's something about being able to do something that you're passionate about. It just feels different. The work feels different. Agreed.
Yep. Yeah. And even the way you approach the work can feel different. I don't, one of my jobs this week, as an example, is I get to go to the Detroit Zoo. We're working on a event for the Detroit Zoo's 90th birthday, where we're doing an adults only scavenger hunt through the zoo. So a part of my job is to go to the zoo and design a game that 700 adults are going to play. I mean, like, if you had to come up with your dream way of spending a day, I mean, is there a better way to spend a day? And that's just one of those really wonderful moments where you got to pinch yourself a little bit and be like, nope, your job is to go look at hippos today. Like, your job is to go, play around in the kangaroo exhibit today. So it's pretty great.
And having Jenny and I last year, we did your Easter egg scavenger hunt, and it was, I can't tell you how much fun it was being one of those adults that got to do that. Oh my gosh, it was so fun. Trivia. And then I got to tell you, if you hide stuff and you want me to find it so I can get prizes, I love that. And then if you give me prizes like stickers, I can't think of anything better.
Oh, I'm so glad.
No, it was one of the funnest, and we've been to a number of your events, and we would repeat all of them, but that one was probably the where we got to go was amazing. I'd never been there before, and then just the whole event itself, the trivia, and then the Easter egg hunt itself, and then we were with friends. We were with two of our girlfriends, so the four of us and just our names. We got to be the what is it, Marvelous Woodpeckers of von Steubenberg. So it was just an amazing event, and I can't tell our listeners and watchers enough how much fun these events are. So
thank you.
Yeah,
that's our focus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
totally.
there's so much research around the fact that human beings, it doesn't matter if it's children or adults, learn and retain better if they're having fun. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
So with the events, our goal is literally get them to have fun. And then if that helps them learn some stuff, that's a bonus. And what's been such a joy is I don't have kids. I like kids. I don't have any. One of the things that always kind of bothers me is I'll read an event and I'll be like, oh man, that sounds so fun. And then you're like, oh, this is aimed at kids.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right.
I'm going to be awkward or annoying or in the way if I'm there as an adult without children.
Mm-hmm.
And, as women, we have a certain level of awkwardness at being at an event for children without children. But for men, I know men who are like, no, I can't go. That sounds great, but I will be weird if I am there.
Right.
So we always try to have events where, we very, very rarely welcome children. About once a year, we do something for the smaller humans, but where it's that joyful fun where you would want to participate. But when it's meant for kids, you feel awkward doing it.
Mm-hmm.
See, I've been bitching for years that all of the cool stuff goes to kids. Like, I'm a dinosaur nut. I love crap like that. And it's like, if I'm, sitting there with a pile of dinosaur toys and I'm like, people are like, oh, for your kids. I'm like, no, these are for me. So
get away from my Stegosaurus.
Totally. Stegosaurus is my favorite one. See? No, and that's and I like the fact that you can go into spaces that normally you wouldn't be able to go. I just thought Fort Wayne, when we were in Fort Wayne last year, I'm just like, I get to be in this really cool, and it is cool. I'm getting all excited just thinking about it. And that was, that's half the thing for me, is that I get to go into these really interesting spaces that normally I would never be able to get to go into. So, and again, that's that fun part, that I'm in something that I would normally not to get, into part, and I get to learn stuff that I normally wouldn't know stuff. So yeah, love it.
Oh, thank you.
So, so he gets to go hang out with hippos. Coolest job ever.
Coolest job ever. It really is. Yeah.
So this question, how do the Detroit History Club and tours work?
So Detroit History Tours kind of has two avenues. You can go to DetroitHistoryTours.com and you can buy 1 ticket, 2 tickets, come on an event. They're public. So you'll meet other people. If it's a walking tour, they're generally about 20. If it's a bus tour, it's generally about 45. It's a good litmus test for meeting people, because most of the time people on history tours tend to be really nice people. So I always tell folks, don't worry about coming as a solo traveler. Don't worry about, coming as a twosome or a group. You'll meet people and sort of rock and roll with the group. We do tours by bus, foot, and boat. And then born from that is the Detroit History Club. We have our clubhouse right here in Hamtramck inside beautiful Detroit. And it's an old funeral home because we're classy. So we do a lot of events here, like our history bingo and our lecture series. We have a new program starting up this summer called Funerals, where we'll pick a deceased person in Detroit's history and host a fun funeral in their honor.
Nice.
So we do all sorts of stuff. We also do a lot of events on site, on locations, historic Fort Wayne, the Detroit Zoo, the Detroit Yacht Club. We have a really proud history of being allowed access into spaces because how just phenomenal our members are. We've got a reputation for being respectful, for taking care of the spots we're in. So we can get people like the National Guard to let us have the 1841 barracked fort on the Detroit River for the day. And that's allowed us to do everything from murder mysteries to scavenger hunts to history of the Detroit pizza night and dinner. You know, it's a little bit of everything. It is a membership-based club, and that is really because of the way the rules are set up. Private clubs have different rules around how they're able to access spaces, how they're able to have alcohol and food prepared. So it's $5 a year to join the Detroit History Club because Henry Ford paid $5 a day, and Helen McGowan, the Motor City Madam, charged $5 a lay. So we went with that number. $5 a year, and that qualifies you to buy tickets to come to any or all of our events. Some of our events are now virtual too, so you can join us online if you're not regionally or for mental, physical reasons able to join us in person. You can log online.
Can I have your Detroit History Club card?
That's awesome. I think that's and again, the $5 a year, that's the easiest part. There's so many great events that it's countless. I can't wait till I get, I'm signed up for the email. So every time I get one of those emails, I'm just like, ooh, that sounds fun. Oh, that sounds fun.
Yes. So we have done a lot of them. We've and I've even my husband, I told my husband he's folding laundry behind me so that he could show our Detroit History Club card.
Oh, cool.
That's his. I've even bought it for. I bought it for like a couple of people who are friends of mine who don't need anything. So I'm like, and I'll often talk about the events that I go to, and they're like, "Oh, I wish I could do that." So for their birthdays, I get them a membership for Detroit History Club,
Thank you.
so that they can go. So I'm like, "Hey, go now! You have no reason go to an event.
Not go.
May I
And why
tell
would you not want to go?
Oh,
that
yeah, go ahead.
completely surprised us? We thought the membership for us in the beginning, the history club is 8 years old this year. The tours are 14 years old. The club is 8 years old. And when we started, we thought the membership was a means to an end, to be allowed to do the things that we can do. What we've been shocked by is how many people just want the card in their wallet. We have members in all 50 states. So we have expats who will, because there's a little spot when you join to tell us something. And we'll get people who say something like, I live in California now, but I grew up in Michigan. I'll only be able to join you for virtual events, but I'm so excited to be a card carrying member. And that was something we never expected. That's kind of been a really fun part of it.
It is. I love telling people that I'm a member of the Detroit History Club. I'm a member.
Too.
Membership has its privileges. It just makes you feel cooler.
It totally does. And now there's like some breweries that are offering like buy one, get one free beers if you show your membership card. There's some coffee places that have some deals going. So we keep joking that we accidentally started we need member jackets or something now.
Ooh, members only jackets.
Oh my gosh, I totally want
So
one.
nerdy, super nerdy. Yeah. Excuse me.
No, that's exactly.
So nerdy, it's cool. So I love that. So, all right, Ann, you get question 7.
Okay. What are your 3 favorite things about Detroit?
My very favorite thing about Detroit is the Detroit River. I grew up being on the river. I grew up being on Belle Isle. I think our Riverwalk being the best in the country by Newsweek or being named best in the country by Newsweek magazine is such a huge feather in our cap. But the Strait of Detroit, that waterway is just this wonderful part of our city's history and landscape and livelihood. And now with the free concert series in the summer, I would struggle to say a way I would rather spend my time. Food, Detroit food. I mean, come on. Our immigrant culture has given us some of the best food around. We're a pizza city. We're a coney dog city. I mean, Eastern market food from like healthy vegan, vegetarian, all the way to like pub grub. There is just so much good food in Detroit. And then the art scene, our public art, but also our museums, our art school with the College for Creative Studies, Wayne State's art program, which is doing amazing work in visual arts, performing arts. If you're bored in Detroit, you're boring. And you give me water, food, and art, and man, I don't want for much.
Exactly. Oh, that's great. And that, and the thing is like, there's something for everybody in Detroit. So,
Yes.
If you're a sports fanatic, if your music is your thing, if you want to go on hikes, nature hikes, art, food, as you said, bike, if you want to, whatever you're into, you can do it in Detroit.
Affordably.
Exactly.
That's a great
Like
point.
you guys
That's a
were just
really
in
great point.
Chicago. And I know you can have fun in any city, on a budget. I'm sure I know you can. I've done it. But I think what Detroit offers you as far as like value for entertainment, engagement, things to do, and the cost to do them, man, we have got that balanced in a really nice way. There's so much that is affordable and attainable. And then now with the Museums for All being an initiative here in Detroit, where if for any reason you can't afford a museum ticket, there's a pile of money to draw from. That is, it's something we should be really proud of as a city, I think, and as a region.
Agreed. Yep,
I
that's
agree.
fantastic.
I agree.
And I would agree, because Chicago is not really an affordable journey. I mean, it's like if I'm going to Chicago, I know I'm saving up my pennies because everything in Chicago is pricey. So yeah, I totally love the fact that you can navigate Detroit very affordably, for sure.
Yes,
So.
I agree.
All right, so we have river, we have food, we have art, we have question 8. Hit it, Ann.
Where do you come up with your event ideas? Because they are very, like the first event my husband and I went to was your Prohibition Ball at the Detroit Yacht Club. So, and then Jenny and I and my friend Jeannie, we just late last year, we went to the Houdini Ball. And then, of course, we talked about the scavenger hunt, and we've been on a number of tours. We've been on cemetery tours and bizarre things in Detroit and food tours and the women's wild women tour. So where do you come up with all these great ideas?
So I have the best team. My staff is infinitely smarter than me. That is my advice for entrepreneurs. Get a team who is much, much smarter than you, and then put yourself in a position to take credit for all their good ideas. My team is brilliant. And a lot of times for every event you see, there were 5 ideas that we couldn't make work.
Wow.
So it always kind of starts with us sitting around, generally with beverages of choice, and going like, all right, top of the year, 12 big events, about 20 small events. We always try to bring on at least 3 new tours every year to keep building out the portfolio of tours. So it's like, all right, what do we want to do? And the dream list is always like, we want to talk NASA into taking 12 of us into space. It's like the big dream stuff. And then from there, it starts being like, all right, well, what can we actually do? And then does it fit our mission? Are we getting people to learn, appreciate, and respect the history of the city of Detroit through this event or tour or programming? And then it's the practical. Can we talk the Stalls Automotive Museum into handing us the keys for the night? And what's been really cool is as the club has grown in the early days, and part of this coincides with the resurgence of interest in Detroit, but in the early days, we were like having to explain what we wanted to do about 14 times to a very confused person who had no metric to understand that like a history club was a thing and that 100 of us wanted to come to their museum late at night and play a game. Now we're starting to get to a point where there's really weird stuff happening. Like museums and groups will reach out to us and be like, hey, can you plan an event for our museum? We're like, really? We don't have to, you'll let us? Great, So a little bit the big dream and then figuring out what we can do with it. Partially, if an organization comes to us, I can spill the beans a little bit that we will be going to the Stalls Automotive Collection later on winter 2025. So that's how far out we work on these things.
Okay.
But when they called and said, we want to work with you, I think my whole office was like, well, how be? That's a new way to have this go. That's exciting. It's a lot of, having conversations with people and seeing what they're willing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as planning the actual event, it's a lot of going there, talking to everyone from the security guards who often know huge amounts about the museums they're protecting, to education people, to anyone within the museum who'll talk to me about like, hey, what's the item within your collection that people always miss that you think is really important? Because I'm going to make that a clue to make sure everybody sees it. Or
Awesome.
What's the thing within your museum that if you like the building's on fire, what are you grabbing? And then building things around making sure we're exploring those aspects of the space. Similarly, we might start with an idea like we want to celebrate the fact that this is the, whatever it is, 100th anniversary of Harry Houdini dying in the city of Detroit on Halloween afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, how do we want to do that? Let's throw a ball and theme it 1920s and bring in a magician who does Houdini's tricks and bring in food that represents all the countries he traveled to. And so it's always a bit of, you get one domino to drop, whether that be the location or the event or the theme, and then building as much nuance and education into it as possible.
Smart.
Excellent. I mean, and it just shows, I mean, you can tell when you go to an event that this wasn't put together last week. I mean, you know that there's a lot of loving care and attention to detail. And so when you mentioned that, we're planning events a year in advance, that is obvious. It is obvious that,
Yeah.
you're one, it's a good value. One, you're getting your money's worth. You really are. Two, the people who put this together, love this so much. They love it as much as the people they're presenting it to. And then you surround yourself in beautiful places with talented people who can really bring things together. So it's I can't tell people enough how amazing I think your events are, your tours and your club events. They're just it's a great, if you have not been before, start by taking some friends. You're like, hey, we need something to do, go to this. And then you're going to keep going back because you won't be able to stop yourself.
No.
And you'll make friends. That's the funnest part. Like the friendships that have built up within the club, in particular the club. We've had 3 sets of people, 6 people meet at the club and who are now married. We have a band at the club. We tried to get naming rights, but they were not having it. But yeah, it's this. It's like in high school. You know how you're like, I'm on the band, or I'm in band, or I'm on the basketball team, or everyone's got their clique.
Mm-hmm.
This is the adult version of that clique.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're not like the history club, are you the get out and do cool things in the city club? Because that's us too.
Right.
Are you the appreciate Detroit club? That's us too.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of us, it's that I know I crave post-education where it was hard to get together with a group of people to share a common interest in a really curated way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those things fall away as you graduate high school, as you graduate college. Those things definitely fall away. I just wanted to give a quick shout out. This is Jeremy Peters. He is watching from the Zipline Bar. Hope all is well. This is actually my nephew who is watching from Colorado. So yeah, Jeremy.
Oh, cheers.
Cheers. Exactly.
Right on.
Yeah.
So it's keeping the Zipline thing in the family. I like it. Well done, Jeremy. So for those of you that might just be joining us, we are talking to Bailey Sisoy-Moore, who is the executive director of Detroit History Tours and the Detroit History Club. And we're just kind of talking about where they get their inspiration and ideas. We were on question 8 here. Where do you come up with your ideas? And again, just talking about this passionate group of people. That's
Lost Jenny there for a second.
a passionate idea.
Sorry, Jen.
Did
we're
you find
losing
me
you.
again? Am I back?
You're back. Yeah, you're back. But yeah.
Uh-oh. Okay, yay. So I had these last couple of questions are ones that popped out of my head. So here's this first question. What is the weirdest Detroit story you know?
Oh man. The problem is there's so many. Weirdest, probably appropriate story I know is, do you know that we had an escaped hippo in the Detroit River?
was hoping that was the one you would talk about. You would mention it. I'm like, hippo.
Hippos.
Okay, no,
So
I did not know that.
Okay, let's set the stage. It's 1834. Detroit is the pharmaceutical capital of America with Parke Davis, the stove capital of the world. 1 out of every 2 cast iron stoves produced in the world at the time were being made here. We are this bustling carriage making, really starting to come through the Industrial Revolution city. And we are also geographically sort of in the center if you look at North America as a whole. And in this era, we are also in the golden age of circuses. There are circuses going coast to coast in this country, up into Canada as well, at staggering numbers, hundreds of different circus outfits. And every circus kind of had its shtick. So you had circuses that were acrobat circuses, and you had circuses that were wild animals, and they each kind of had their play. And a lot of these circuses condensed down through mergers over the years. So like today, everybody knows Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus. Well, that started out as about 14 different circuses that over the years condensed down. But there was a circus called the Cole Brothers Circus, C-O-L-E. And the Cole Brothers built a reputation for themselves on being the animal circus. They were a menagerie. And when you would come to Detroit, it was often here that circuses would start or end their season because they could live here in the off season. They also could take advantage of having Windsor right across the river. So like play Detroit for 2 weeks, hop across the river, play Windsor for a week. And with minimal travel, you have almost a full month of shows. Similar to like concerts, comedians today, play Windsor, come across, play Detroit, minimal travel, 2 big venues. So comes to Detroit, Cole Circus, it's 1883. They play Windsor. It's 5 engagements, 5 days of shows. Then they load onto freighters, really ferries by today's standard, and they come from Windsor across the river to Detroit. There was no bridge at the time. There was no tunnel at the time. There were 7 different ferry companies operating. And imagine all the stuff that a circus has to move. I mean, we're talking huge amounts of things and equipment and animals. So they employ several different ferry companies and they're all moving their stuff. And then it gets to the animals and a few of the ferry operators are like, no dice. We're not moving the big animals. Don't want to do it. So of course, as you know, everything changes, but everything stays the same. It gets down to the big animals, a hippo and a large sort of what we now believe is a Newfoundland or Mastiff type dog. All of the newspaper accounts say a large dog. And the only ferry company that'll take it is the crappiest, cheapest ferry company. And they hook this hippo onto the ferry. And it's more a barge than anything. And they're going across the river. And midway across, the hippo goes, F this, and jumps into the river.
How about that?
It's chained at the leg, but the ferry operator is not willing to lose his boat to this hippo. So he cuts the chain, he unhinges it, and off goes the hippo. And the hippo basically floats, swims its way off. Hippos don't really swim, they push off the bottom. But the Detroit River has everything you need as a hippo. It's deep enough to hide, but shallow enough to allow for their type of swimming. It's got huge amounts of vegetation. And what's today Essex and Windsor was the radish capital of the world, which happens to be the Oreo of the hippo community. Radishes are like their kryptonite, right? So this hippo's like, screw you guys. This is great. Off I go. And they do everything they can to try to catch the hippo. It takes them about 5 days. And during that time, there are newspaper reports that are everything from like, mothers of Detroit, get your children out of the river. Do not send your children down to the waterfront for any reason. Human, flesh-hungry hippopotamus in the water.
Give it all these term to hungry hippo.
Is this hippo moseys its way down towards Essex, comes up ashore, and starts just gorging itself on radishes. The radish farmer finds the hippo and basically goes, shit, like, why is there a hippo in my radish field? He runs into town, tells the Essex sheriff, who basically has the circus come and they recapture the hippo and put her back into service in Detroit for the circus, which now runs with big advertisements and placards in beautiful lithograph color. Come see the wild hippo of the Detroit River. And you think this would be like, the one time it happened. And then 5 years later, a different circus had a different elephant escape into the river. So we have on multiple occasions had hippos in our river.
Well, and again, kind of sad. I'm kind of rooting for the hippo. It would have been nice if she could have just hung out and be like, yeah, I'm going to live with this radishes in this nice river forever. Fuck you guys.
So I brought this up. One of my favorite parts about what I get to do for a living is I get to meet really cool people who are experts in their field. And I met this brilliant woman who actually is a large animal veterinarian. And I said to her, she got a minute for a hippo question. And I told her this story. And I said, like, could the hippo have survived? Had it not been able to be caught, like, what would have happened? What would have the end game have been from an animal perspective? And she basically said the weather in Michigan would have been the problem, that the minute we had freezing, the hippo would be struggling to survive. And for the winter, when there's not enough vegetation to support the hippo, it either would have froze to death or starved to death. But in my mind, I was like Pablo Escobar, just a herd of hippos in the river. But she said, unfortunately, our climate for about 9 months, that hippo would have been pretty well off. But once the weather turned, it wouldn't have naturally survived.
Would not have worked out.
Well, too bad. Team
can't
hippo.
win them all.
Yeah.
Would have been a nice break though for that hippo. Be like, get away from the circus. Here's my little vacation.
Little
These delicious
5-day
Oreo
resort.
radishes.
Mhm.
Ooh, all inclusive resort.
Yeah. I like it. Like that's real farm to table kind of eating.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Right on. All right, we've got Julie with us. Julie, how you doing,
Hey,
Julie? Good to see
Julie.
you. Right on. All right, so we've got one last question for you. Are you ready for this one last question?
I'm ready.
That's not it. This is the last question. And what do you think is the most important thing someone not from Detroit should know about Detroit?
Stop calling us a comeback. We've always been here. There is a real feeling nationally and internationally that Detroit is hip and new and cool. And hell yeah, we are. We are all those things in a bag of Better Maids. But we are also a 323-year-old European colonized city. We are a tract of land that for 8,000 years has had human habitation. We gave the world Motown and the Coney dog and the automotive assembly line. This is the city that invented the refrigerated railroad car. So the reason, meat could be slaughtered in Chicago and served in San Francisco is Detroit. We put the first police car on the road and the first police radio. And all of these things build to the collective story of Detroit, which is far too old and far too rich to be called new. I think for those who aren't from here, come visit us. Let us prove to you that we are one of the great cities of the world, have been, always will be. And although we're getting better, we were never gone. Never. Oh, and the river is not a river. Can I have two things?
Yes,
of course
please.
you can.
The Detroit River is not a river. It's a strait. The Detroit River connects two tidal bodies of water, Lake Erie and Lake St. Clair. That makes it a strait. So what today we call the Detroit River was actually named by the French who settled Detroit July 24, 1701, as Fort Pontchartrain de Detroit. Detroit is the French word for a strait. So then the British, who thought Detroit was so nice they conquered it twice, they anglicized Detroit to Detroit. But what we today call a river is actually a strait. And I think that's funny and fun and something worth knowing.
Exactly.
Yes, and you can impress people with your knowledge by saying, well, actually, it's not a river. So boom.
Actually, yeah.
Because people love that.
Oh, yeah. They love when you correct them on things like that.
Indeed. So we've got a couple of people. So Julie Nicastri says that Detroit has always been awesome. True statement.
Julie.
Yes.
And we have Julia Camera.
Wasilek. It's Wasilek.
Yes. Wasilek. I'm glad you're enjoying this, Julia. We aim to please. Right on.
Exactly.
Well, those are two great things, and I 100% agree. I think Detroit is amazing. It's one of those places that we got to go to Detroit really for the first time with our Aunt Julie when we were like 10 and 11 years old. And it's always had a place in my heart since then because I never knew what it was. And then have through the years, both Ann and I went to Eastern and got to know the city a little bit. Anna's really gotten to know the city because I ran off to Colorado for a number of years. But in coming back, my first event with the Detroit History Club was actually the Moonlight River Cruise up to Belle Isle and back in what that was summer of 2021, which was glorious, and then have been a fan ever since. So,
Thank you.
so yeah, yep, just outstanding, wonderful, great. Again, a great way to get to learn Detroit and just to understand. It's just rich history is an understatement, that's for sure.
Mhm. Yeah,
Heck
it is
yeah.
an understatement. It's funny because people think like of New Orleans as such an old town here in the United States. And I'm like, Detroit's just as old.
Older.
Well,
We're
exactly.
14 years older.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, Detroit's an old, old, old city. So
It is. So let's put some stuff on the screen here. Let's throw this on the screen. We're going to add that to the stage, and I'm going to bring Julie's banner off there real quick. Sorry, I'm doing two things. I'm doing too many things at once. So
Oh, thank you for the shout outs. This is wonderful.
no problem. I'm going to take that one off as well. There's number. Okay, here we go. So a huge thank you to Bailey Sisoy-Moore of the Detroit History Club and Detroit History Tours. You guys have a thriving social media presence. You can email them at office@detroithistorytours.com. The phone number is listed up here. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Bailey, what other social media presence do you have?
That's pretty much the majors. We do something called History Bedtime Stories, little video history tidbits. Those show up on our YouTube and our Facebook. We're trying to get better about Instagram. I'm an elder millennial, so I struggle with these things, but we're working on getting better at it. But we'd love to see anybody at in person or on any of these resources.
Sounds great.
yeah, Jenny and I are the same. We are a little, we are Gen X, of course, as we have said, but our Instagram presence is not as strong as it should be.
We'll call it a little on the scanty side. I don't,
Yeah,
we're getting there. I keep waiting
If
for
we're
my
great
millennial.
at everything, no one's gonna like us.
I know, right?
exactly.
This is like what we give to the rest of the world. We can't be great at everything.
Exactly.
We
We're
have
making
some
ourselves
gaps.
more accessible as human beings.
That's right. That's right. So, so Bailey, just so you know, we understand your niece likes the tote bag. Well, don't worry, you've got another tote bag coming your way.
Oh,
With some
thank you.
stickers and a few other Michigan treats. So just know that that is our little way of saying thank you for coming on the show. Because again, having been through some of your tours and some of your events, we know how busy you are. So the fact that you found an hour to come hang out with us today has been just magnificent. So thank you again.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you for the privilege. This was so much fun.
Not a
Good.
problem.
Good. It was totally our pleasure.
Indeed. So I'm going to keep you on till the end of the show, if that's okay with you, Bailey, while we
Absolutely.
finish up our stuff here. We have our sneak peek at next week. This is a big one. It's coming, you guys. So we're going to go ahead and drop this episode March 31st. And then that next weekend in April, we'll be doing our sneak peek of next week, which is the eclipse. That's right. The Great American Eclipse 2 is coming your way April 8th. Number 2, this will be our second eclipse in 7 years. Anna and I went to the 2017, which really, if you want to get down to it, was the thing that kind of really started this for us. We did a bunch of Facebook Lives from the eclipse from Grand Island, Nebraska. So we are going back for another eclipse. We will be broadcasting live from Ottawa National Refuge in Oak Harbor, Ohio, and crossing our fingers for some decent weather. But we'll also be doing a little preview show before that. I get to nerd out and talk about eclipses because I like stuff like that. And I am going to eclipse so hard on America. So watch out. I'm going to get my eclipse all over you.
Nice.
So anyway, as you can see, that's what you can see. I'm already super excited about this. So that's our show next week. You can support the Brothers Sisters for free. You can like us, follow us, subscribe to us on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon. That's right. You can ask Alexa to say our name. You can put the word out to your friends, family, who can also follow. Even if they don't listen to us, they can still follow, and subscribe to us. Your love don't cost a thing, to quote the great Jennifer Lopez. So there you go.
Nice job, Jenny Brothers. Nice job.
Thank you. Julie wants to say how exciting solar eclipse. Yeah, it's totally, you guys. And I have one thing to say about the eclipse. If you have an opportunity to get to Ohio, just go, especially if you live on the east side of Michigan. There's literally no reason for you not to drive down. You can drive as little as Toledo. You should be able to pick up totality at Toledo. And you guys do not underestimate the importance of seeing totality versus 99% is not a total eclipse, you guys. And the experiences are 100% different than being in a totality. Trust me.
Mhm.
Get yourself into the totality. It's a little tiny, maybe a 60-mile window. Get yourself to the totality. So there you go.
There you go.
All right. So I'm going to take that out. I'm going to bring us back. And I'm going to play our amazing music. Are you guys ready? Here
Totally
goes. This is
ready.
Okay, good.
Okay.
There it is. It is. Max.
I was going to say Max Caselli did our music for us. We still have to come up with names for it. We still have to have titles.
Oh,
I
it's
know. We
great.
don't have I know. Yeah, he did this because he's young and knows how to do stuff, unlike us who are less young. Anyway.
I'm starting to understand that having the young people around for the abilities.
They do. They have. Yeah. So anyway, you guys, thank you for joining us. Bailey, again, thank you so much. Thanks for listening to the Brother Sisters Smart Dumb Fun, and we will see you soon. See you next week. Peace out.